be or anything, if you be the one to take me home. 'Cause right now everything makes me wanna leave this place and roam. Make me feel alive. Take my hand and run, let me be the one. Let's just take the dive. Nights only begun, don't you think we're done? Don't you think we're done? Don't you think we're done?
Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we are going to talk about a num type in Java. And before we start talking about a num, I want to show you what a num is intended to replace. In programming, you'll often have variables which can only take specific values that represent specific things. So let's take an example of that. I'll type in color. Now let's say this int color can take different values that represent different colors. I could declare particular integer values that this variable could then take. I'll say here public static final int red equals 1, and then public static final int green equals 2, and so on. Let's also say public static final int blue equals 3. And then later on, I can set this integer value to one of these. So I could say int color equals red. And I could also switch the color. I will say here case green is out green. And then I'll add a break. Now there's an issue with this. And the issue is that I only want it to represent a fixed set of values. I've only defined 3 different possible colors to represent this scheme, but I could assign it any value, and it wouldn't be clear what it would mean in this case. And I would really like to restrict colors to just these particular values, because it is very common to have a variable that you want to represent different members of a fixed set of values. If we run this, we'll get red. Another issue with it is that you can't tell just by looking at this what you're meant to set it equal to. You have to know that this exists as well. So if I was passing int color as an argument to a method, I might not know that these constants exist, and I really wouldn't know what to do with it. Thus, we want a special type that can be set to only represent certain members of a fixed set of values, and that's what enum does. Enum stands for enumerated, and if you enumerate something, you count through it. And the enum type represents some fixed set of values, although not in any particular order. So let's take a look at it. The syntax for creating enums is just like the syntax for creating classes or interfaces. You can also right-click and go to New Enum. Let's give it a name. I'll call it Color and click Finish. Then if we look at syntax here, we do not have public class. We have public enum. And now what we can do with this is I can type red, green, blue, separated by commas. And now if I go back to my main application here, I don't need these constants anymore. And instead of having int color, I can say colored color. So I've created this color type just like a class, and I can declare variables with that type. I can switch it just as before. Let's get rid of these for the moment. Now I can get Eclipse to fill in the possible switch case values for me. If I click this warning, I can add missing case statements. I've got case red, green, blue, and default. And let's put sys out here. Sys out green, and let's say sys out blue. Let's run this. And we've got red here. Of course, if I set it to green, we'll get green. And if I set it to blue, we'll get blue. Keep in mind that if you refer to the numerator type, you have to say color.red or green or blue. But if you use it with a switch statement, you just use red, green, or blue by itself, and Java supposes that you're switching on this particular variable of this type. It supposes that you mean color.red or color.green. And now that we have gone through the most common use case, let's look at more advanced uses of enum. So if you look at this enum here, you might wonder what red, green, and blue actually are. How does this work? Red, green, and blue are actually objects of the type color. So for example, if you do a sysout on an enum type, the result won't really help you. If I do sysout on color.green and run it, it will just output green. It's just a string green, so it doesn't tell you anything about the class. But if you do a sysout color.green.getClass, and if I run it, we can see that the class is color. So these are actually objects of the type color. I could also do a sysout and say color.green, let's say instance of color. The instance of operator tells us if this is an instance of color class or not. Thus, green is an object created from color class. This should say true, and it actually does. I can also say instance of enum or java-lang enum. If I run this, I get true again because objects of subclasses are instances of superclasses. So that is how enum works. Now let's take a look at different things that you can do with enum. First, you have to remember to close this list here with a semicolon. Now, let's give this enum type a constructor, and you can give it methods as well. Let's say here, color and put the brackets in. Now you might think, why would you want to give this enum type a constructor? Well, the answer is you could pass parameters here. So let's say, for example, string meaning. I could pass in whatever parameters I want. And now each of these color objects must be instantiated with a meaning because I've only got one constructor here, and it expects a meaning. And to do that, I just pass it in round brackets here. You cannot use the new keyword with enum, but these are objects and you can pass values right here. Let's say red's meaning is passion, and green's meaning is health. And blue stands for calm, let's say. So whatever parameters you declare here, you can then pass them here. You can also give your enum type instance data. For example, let's say private string meaning. And then just as you would normally do in a class, you can say this dot meaning equals meaning. So now my colors have got a meaning. Now let's right-click here and go to Source, Generate Getters and Setters. And let's create a getter for meaning. So public string get meaning returns meaning. And now I can do things like sysoutColor.red.getMeaning and run it. So I'm getting the meaning of my color. You can also override to string here. You have to remember the syntax to override to string, because you cannot right-click and generate to string method in Enums. So I can do return meaning, or return whatever string I want. Let's say this color's meaning is plus meaning. And now if I do sys out on my color like colors.red and I run it, it's gonna say this color's meaning is passion. So exactly as with normal objects, you can override to string with enums. And there are also few special methods that are inherited from Java-lang enum as well. If I do sys out on this enum, I'm going to get the toString version of it. But maybe you want the actual enum value as a string. And enum provides a special method that gets you the numerator as a string. So let's say sys out enum meaning as a string. Plus color.red.name. If I run it, the actual name of the enum is red in uppercase, and that gets me this value here. And that's useful, for example, if you want to save an enum constant to a database. And you can also do the reverse with the value of method. So I'm gonna say here color1 equals color.value of, let's say, red. Then I can say sys out color1, and if I run this, then you see here, this color's meaning is passion. Keep in mind that these are not strings. These are special objects, and we refer to them as enum constants. However, I can turn them into a string using name method. I can get the actual value of it using the value of method, or I can override the toString method. And that's pretty much it for enums. You can find this source code in resources section. And I'll see you next time. Until then, keep practicing.
We've lost track of time, don't know how to feel, but I'm not sorry. I'm lost in your eyes, are you even real? But don't you worry, I'm not looking for the one. No, I just wanna have some fun. So let's get drunk tonight, 'cause what can we feel? But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay. No, I can't be the only one who doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna feel. Doesn't wanna fall in love. May not see eye to eye, but we can be chill for just this moment. So turn out the lights and let's make a deal to just enjoy it. I'm not thinking about forever. I won't care if we don't end up together. Let's get high tonight, 'cause fuck how we feel, yeah. But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay. No, I can't be the only one who doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Oh, yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. We've lost track of time, don't know how to feel, but I'm not sorry. I'm lost in your eyes, are you even real? But don't you worry, I'm not looking for the one. No, I just wanna have some fun. So let's get drunk tonight, 'cause what can we feel? But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay. No, I can't be the only one who doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna feel. Doesn't wanna fall in love. May not see eye to eye, but we can be chill for just this moment. So turn out the lights and let's make a deal to just enjoy it. I'm not thinking about forever. I won't care if we don't end up together. Let's get high tonight, 'cause fuck how we feel, yeah. But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay. No, I can't be the only one who doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Oh, yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. We've lost track of time, don't know how to feel, but I'm not sorry. I'm lost in your eyes, are you even real? But don't you worry, I'm not looking for the one. No, I just wanna have some fun. So let's get drunk tonight, 'cause what can we feel? But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay.
just enjoy it. I'm not thinking about forever. I won't care if we don't end up together. Let's get high tonight, 'cause fuck how we feel, yeah. But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay. No, I can't be the only one who doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Oh, yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. Yeah. Doesn't wanna fall in love. We've lost track of time, don't know how to feel, but I'm not sorry. I'm lost in your eyes, are you even real? But don't you worry, I'm not looking for the one. No, I just wanna have some fun. So let's get drunk tonight, 'cause fuck how we feel. But for now, I won't give it all away, 'cause I don't think I'll stay.
Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to go through serialization in Java. For this lecture, it's good if you already know lots of basic Java. I've already created a project in Eclipse, and I've created a few files here. But before we dive into examples, let's talk first about what serialization actually is. Serialization means turning an object into byte stream. And if you deserialize an object, it means taking byte stream and turning it back into an object. What we will go through here is serializing to files, which is often what people mean when they say serializing in Java. So we're going to take objects in this vehicle class that I've created, and we're going to write them to a file. Then we're going to see how we can read them back from that file. So we're going to take objects out of the file and turn them back into objects in a Java program. So I've created a separate program for reading objects and another one for writing objects in order to make it easier for you to understand serialization. But usually they will be part of the same program. I've got one main method here in this reading class, and I've got a different main method in writing class. So here will be a program that writes objects to a file, and here another program that reads them from a file. But as I already mentioned, they should be part of the same program. And another important thing to mention here is that I have more than one main methods in my program. And you are allowed to do that in Java, even though you have to pick one main method as a starting point for your program when you run it. But you're allowed to define as many main methods as you want. So we're gonna make use of that here in this lecture. And here I have a vehicle class that I've created. And it's just a really simple class with just some simple data. It has a serial number and a brand. We've got a constructor that allows us to set the data, and I've given it a toString method, so that if we call systemoutprintln and pass a vehicle object, it will print it out better. I have the writing program here, and it is currently just saying writing objects. It also creates two objects in the vehicle class with different serial numbers and different brands. And then it's just using sysout to display those objects, as you can see down here. And I've got the reading program, and it only displays the text reading objects. So I'll start by writing our objects to a file. I'm gonna take these objects here and write them out to a file. To do this, I'm gonna use file output stream. Let's call it file output and set that equal to a new file output stream. This class will send the data to the file. So we need to pass an argument to this constructor here, which is the name of the file to stream to. I could pass a full file path here, but I'll just give it a simple name. Let's call it vehicle.data. Let's import a file output stream. Click the warning and go to Import File Output Stream. Another thing we have to do is handle the exceptions. You can surround it with try-catch or add throws declaration and throw the exception out of your main method. However, I'm gonna use try with resources in this case. I'm gonna type try here and surround the whole thing with brackets, getting rid of the semicolon, and then put the curly brackets in. And then if I click the warning, I can go to add catch clause, and we can catch the exceptions that this throws. The advantage of try with resources is that it will automatically call the close method with this object. So it is going to call file output.close. So now this will catch a file not found exception, which will be called if we can't create this file. IO exception can be thrown as well, and that can be thrown if we can't write to this file. So if you want to distribute this program to the end users, you need to handle message outputs in these exceptions. However, I will just leave the stack trace in because I want to put the whole focus in serialization during this lecture. So we already have a file output stream, and now I'm going to create an object output stream. Which I'll call object output. I'll set it equal to new object output stream, and I need to pass to this constructor the file output stream that we're going to use to allow this object output stream to stream data to our file. Let's add the import statement by clicking the warning and going to import object output stream. Here, I need to call the close method. I'll say object output.close. Now we can use this object output stream to write these objects to a file. So here we can say object.write, and if I type write, we've got methods for writing all kinds of data here, such as integers, strings, and so on. So you can serialize whatever data you want. However, here I'm just gonna serialize these two objects. Now, because I want to write an object of a type I've declared, I'm gonna use the write object method here, and I'm gonna pass it to one of my objects. So I'm gonna say here car. It contains this data, a serial number, and the brand. And now let's do the other one. Let's say object.write object and write my truck object. And that is enough to serialize the object to a file. But if I run this now, what we'll get is a not serializable exception. And that is happening because our vehicle class is currently not serializable. And how do you make a class serializable in Java? And the answer is very simple. We'll go to vehicle class here and implement the serializable interface. Let's add the import statement and run it. And because I wrote it to my working directory of my program. Now if I click on my project, right-click, and go to refresh in Eclipse, it should appear here. And here it is, vehicle.data. So we've written that file, and we've written two objects in that file. And now let's write some codes that can read those objects. I'll go to this reading program here. And now we want to file input stream instead of file output stream. So file input stream, I'll call it file input, equals new file input stream. So again, I need to pass the name of the file that I want it to read from, which is vehicle.data. And let's use try with resources syntax again, which will close this automatically. I'll import the class, and I'll add the catch clauses. Here we go. So again, file not found if the file isn't found, and input-output exception if there's a problem reading from the file. And if you use a different exception handling syntax, Please don't forget to call FileInput.close. Now I'm gonna create an object input stream. I'll call it object input and set that equal to new object input stream. And pass in the file input stream there. Don't forget to call here object input.close. So now we're going to read those two vehicle objects. I'll say vehicle 1 equals object input dot read object. And because this returns object parent class, I need to cast this to the particular type of object, which is vehicle. And this throws another exception. So let's click the error and go to Add Catch Clause. We'll catch another exception down here. The class not found exception will be thrown if you try to read something from a file in a class that you haven't defined in your program. Now, let's read our second object. I'll say here vehicle 2 equals. Let's add the type cast in. And then object input dot read object. To show that we've read those objects correctly, let's go down here and put in sysout vehicle 1 and sysout vehicle 2 and save it. Now let's run it. So let's make sure we're on reading class and click run. And you can see it says reading objects. And here are our vehicles. So we have successfully read them. And this is how we came to the end of this lecture. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep practicing.
We've lost track of time.